All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her. I am the executive director of the Gallatin County Democrats, and I am thrilled to be joined tonight by Denise Hayman, who is running for re-election in House District 66. And just going to ask her some questions about what comes next in Montana and the things that she's running for and fights for us every session up in Helena. So Denise, take it away.
Well, thank you. Um, I think that the number one priority is make sure that Medicaid expansion is on solid footing and that some Republicans don't try and pull some funny business with that. And that funny business would be try to underfund it or, limit who can obtain Medicaid expansion, like work requirements and that sort of thing. So I think that's going to be the challenge. There's certainly a segment of Republicans who are really unhappy that we passed that last session. Mm-hmm. We need to fund education, and there is a formula for inflation funding, and we need to move that forward. It would be great if we could fund special ed. We have done a very, very poor job of that, and it would be great if we could. And my passion is energy, and I am very concerned about the direction that energy bills have taken. And so I will be fighting the good fight with a lot of other folks to make sure that we don't have some of those coal strip number 4 for $1 bills, are really quite challenging. Mm-hmm. They get a head of steam behind them, and they're really, really tough to stop them. Mm-hmm. And this session is going to be like no other. Are we going to meet in Helena? Are we going to meet on Zoom? What is the priority in terms of number of bills that legislators can bring? How effective are we going to be? And obviously, our number one priority is House Bill 2, which funds state governments. So, yeah, it's going to be fairly challenging. We don't know anything right now about how that's going to be set up. There is a group currently of legislators and senators in Helena called the Legislative Council, and they've met several times and they cannot agree on what we should do. So they're leaving it in the hands of the next elected officials, and that will be after November 4th. And that's going to be very, very late. So yeah, I shudder to think how we're going to put together a plan that makes sense and protects people's health and well-being. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Tough challenges ahead.
Very tough. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I know this will be your third election? Fourth. Okay. Okay. So you've held this seat now for 3 sessions. Tell us a little bit about your district and, the things that you've accomplished before and why you maybe even chose to run again. Just a little bit more about your background would be awesome.
Sure. Well, my district is a very odd-shaped district. It's south and north of Main Street. it ends at Rouse and Cottonwood all the way out past 19th. So it's long and narrow. The old downtown is the heart of my district, and several blocks north and south. It is a Democratic district, and it supported me for 3 terms now. What I've been fortunate to do is the first year, my big bill was an education bill. It was the first time that we had passed increases for funding for education. And I think it was just the timing. They were ready to not fight us on it anymore. And so inflation funding passed, and that felt really great. Denise Juneau was head of OPI at that point, and she had asked me to carry this bill, and I gulped and I said, don't you want a more seasoned person to do this? And she said, oh, no, I want you. And partly, I'm sure, because I'd been on the Bozeman School Board for 14 years. So anyway, that was fun. And since that, I have passed 2 or 3 bills that I'm very proud of, but one in particular was last session, which was a very, very complex bill called securitization. And what it basically does is that if Northwestern owns an asset that becomes what's called a stranded asset, so coal strip 1, 2, 3, and 4, if that no longer is a moneymaker, they can go to the PSC and say, hey, we need your help in selling bonds to pay off the debt, because there is a lot of debt connected to coal strip 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we need your help to come up with a new plan of energy development. And so I simplified it, but believe me, it was a very complex bill, and we got it passed. I was truly, truly amazed. So that's one of the issues that I've been worried about, is coal strip no longer being a viable asset for Northwestern. So that gives them an option. They don't have to do it, but at least it gives them an option.
Absolutely. So let's open it up. Dwayne or Elizabeth, do you have any questions for Denise?
Well, I have several.
Oh, good.
So Denise, I was going to ask you about your priorities, and you did a great job of walking through those. I think the time that I'm trying to remember that I met you, it was on renewable energy. There were
right.
renewable energy bills that were in the hopper at that time. So if coal strip is no longer viable, and none of us who care about climate change believe that it is, what do you see as the next step? I mean, where do we go from here? If it's not coal, where do we go for firm energy?
Well, Northwestern has a procurement plan that is very heavy on natural gas, and natural gas comes with its own problems. So I think that looking at the Supreme Court decision on solar recently, I'm sure you've seen that in the paper, which demands that the PSC give solar a fair shake. So what they decided to do a few years ago was say, well, you can only make so much money off of solar, and the turnaround on payback on the installation is 10 to 15 years. Well, most companies, they build in a turnaround of 20 to 25 years to pay off their investment. So several groups took the PSC to court and said, you know, this wasn't fair. They're not operating on a level playing field for all types of energy. So that's a good decision. I think that I'll be carrying a bill called pre-approval, and we want to do away with that with Northwestern. And that basically allows them to go after, let's say, the rest of coal strip 4 and incur debt for the ratepayers. And the PSC has said, you know, just keep us in the loop if you're going to do something like that and commit to that kind of expenditure. And that's what's called pre-approval. We want to do away with that. No other company is afforded that opportunity. If you want to build something, you have to go to your stockholders, you've got to go to whomever pays your bills, and you have to validate why you want to expend this money and how it's going to benefit the shareholders or whomever. It's business 101. And we're just saying enough of Northwestern getting a free ride on all of this, and they need to, you know, step up as a responsible business and let us know what they want to invest in.
Do you think, Denise, that solar is going to be adequate to take the place of what we get from coal? And I know you're looking at natural gas, but natural gas isn't an end all either.
No.
You can't answer all these things right now, but there are questions to be obvious.
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of solar, hydro, wind, and maybe some gas. But, you know, the writing's on the wall for coal. You know, it's not viable. The companies that own the big mines, they're not viable. They're in financial disarray. So it's going to be up to these other companies, and they've just not gotten a fair shake in Montana. And if we give them a fair shake, there is something called the imbalance market. And we're in the process, we as a state through Northwestern are in the process of joining this. And so Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California, Wyoming, I think those are the major states. Well, they've all said pretty much, we don't want to buy dirty energy, dirty being coal. So think about them. And the cost of a kilowatt of coal is like $75. Well, they can get much cheaper energy from any place else. So wind, solar, hydro, you name it, much cheaper. So if I'm joining the imbalance market and I'm clear I don't want to buy dirty coal, are you going to come to Montana? Even though we're part of the imbalance market? No, you're not. You're going to say, you know, my legislature has mandated we can't invest in carbon producing companies. So energy. So we have an opportunity coming up if we step up and we make the right decisions, that we could participate. We could put it on our transmission lines and send it to wherever, you know? And that doesn't even include storage. So down the road, storage is going to be a big player on all of this.
Denise, I've got one more and then I'll let other people jump in. But this is a broader one and it hangs heavy. That's the House Bill 2.
Uh-huh.
Every single session, Bullock has come out with a comprehensive budget plan.
Right.
And the first thing that the Republicans do is to tear it apart into fragments where they can beat each part separately to death.
Sure.
Okay, so with all of the priority issues that are on the table right now, and you went through the whole laundry list, healthcare and education and energy are the big ones. And all of them are going to be hurting. And with the tax losses from COVID effects, you know, it's going to be harder than ever to get anything adequately funded to be able to carry them through in a way that meets the needs of these various programs like public education, like Medicaid expansion. You know what the Republicans are going to do, right?
Sure.
They're just going to say we can't afford it and we're not going to raise taxes. So do you have a strategy that you are thinking about for blunting their attacks and being able to move forward? And then I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, one way to do it is get enough Democrats elected. So it's not quite the battle. It's more of an equal playing field. Fortunately, financially, we're doing fine. We're not as bad as a lot of other states. So the question will be, what do we look like financially the end of the year? And I'm hopeful that we'll look okay. We're not going to be coming up with a lot of bills that are new money bills. You know, you got to spend new money. I don't think that's very realistic in this economy. But I believe, and especially if we don't go to Helena and we're just on Zoom, just think of the money the state will save on per diem and that sort of thing. So I'm hopeful that that will help. But you're right. Republicans love to pick apart the HB2. They love to make the picture look worse than it is, and we have to battle them every year. Every session rather. I am not an expert on finances, so I pay attention to the people like Jim Hamilton and others who do know this, and I keep up with it by talking to them. Things, as you can imagine, fly fast and furious up there, and no one can be an expert on everything, but you can certainly keep yourself informed about bills that are coming up that could really impact Montanans and their way of life. So that's all we can do. And we need a backstop of a governor who will veto some of these proposals, these bills, because they're going to come up with some really good ones if Gianforte gets elected.
Well, let's hope he doesn't.
No, I totally agree.
Let's hope and let's work to make sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the part that, you know, we all have a lot to do in the next 2 months to make sure that we do elect as many Democrats to the Montana legislature as possible, as well as getting Mike Cooney elected into the governor's race. You know,
Correct.
one or both of those saves Montana. Like that's how I see it. Like this is about saving Montana, because I think, you know, Gianforte and the governor's seat is going to be so devastating for so many reasons. Elizabeth, do you have any questions?
I do. Of course I do. Denise, if elected to leadership again, would you be willing to serve? And if so, if it's all virtual, how will that role change?
Well, I've been thinking about that the last few weeks. How would that change? So we already communicate by cell phone, email, and we meet every morning at 7 o'clock in the bullpen, what's called the bullpen. We won't be doing that. So how do we backfill that in some other way? And I think the way to do it is we continue to have those meetings, but we do them via Zoom. And it's also going to require that we're more sensitive and solicitous of people who especially are brand new in the legislature, because you're kind of overwhelmed in the beginning. You're in this room packed with people, and by your fourth term, you're a veteran and you know a lot. But that's not helpful for new people. So what we need to do is make sure we have an environment that invites new people to ask those questions that they might think are, oh, that's not an important question. Or make sure you set up a meeting time where they can ask those questions so they feel they can participate and learn something. And also, we all ask questions that might seem dumb sometimes. You know, we all need to do that, and we need to provide an environment for people to ask those questions, you know. But that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort from leadership to do that, plain and simple. And you don't get a lot of time. So, you know, you hit the ground running and you're meeting in the bullpen and you're finding out about bills that you're going to be faced with as a committee member and you don't know anything about them. And so trying to keep information out there available, especially to new legislators. I'm less worried about veterans, but new legislators, we really need to come up with a process that they will feel supported, plain and simple.
Maybe a mentorship program where you know, maybe you have two elder statesmen, and I don't mean old by that, just elder statesmen available to the newcomers.
We've tried that in the past. Sometimes it's worked great. Sometimes it's not. I think it's well worth trying to put that together again. I think what you have to do is recognize, is this really a fit? If it's a fit, that's a great thing. If it's not, cut bait, try and find them another mentor, you know, kind of thing. And don't drag it on.
Agreed. So my next question is this: are you in the process of drafting bills already, and what do those bills look like?
Well, I suspect if we go to a Zoom, we'll only get a handful of bills to. I can't imagine we'll be, you know, introducing tens of bills, you know, during the session via Zoom, because we'll be cross-eyed at the end of every day. It's just not going to be physically possible. So I'm trying to be selective. I have, as I told Dwayne, that pre-approval bill, that's a committee bill. I will carry that. I am thinking about a bill that did not pass last time, third-party ballot qualification It never made it out committee. Quite frankly, Republicans felt really threatened by it. But, you know, if we had it in place right now, this whole issue with the Green Party wouldn't have happened at all. It would have taken care of all that. And what I like to say to the Republicans is you could be in the same situation. It wouldn't be a Green Party, but it could be a new party that just comes out of the woodwork. And you are protected as much as we are if we have criteria about how you qualify for the ballot. So those are the two right now that I'm for sure going to do pre-approval, and I'll see what the numbers are November 4th on the other.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's go on to someone else, but I think I have another question if you have time for it at some point.
Go for it, Elizabeth.
If you are in a session, and let's just say in the Democrats get everything they want, and there's plenty of people in the House to pass bills, plenty of people in the Senate to pass bills, and a Democratic governor. How do you make both sides feel engaged, heard, and responded to?
Well, whatever you're drinking, Elizabeth, I would love to have, I'd love to have some of that.
Yeah, it's kava tea. I've been drinking kava tea for reducing anxiety. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Clearly it's working. You know, I think that I have a really great relationship with a lot of Republicans. I have worked hard at having those relationships, and without those relationships, I wouldn't have passed some of my bills, plain and simple. I think that if we were the majority party, if you become arrogant, that's going to get you into trouble every time. I believe in if we're the majority party and we're passing a lot of bills, it's important to work with the other side, plain and simple. And I'm not talking about the side that's, you know, anti-vaxxers or that kind of thing. I'm talking about the moderate Republicans who you may see eye to eye on some energy issues or whatever, healthcare issues. It does you no good to thumb your nose at them and say, hey, we're in charge. I wouldn't do that in a million years. I don't do that in my personal life. So I think it's mandatory that we would put together a game plan and invite those who wanted to work with us to sit down at the table. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you.
Dwayne?
These, just to continue with Elizabeth's line, one of the things that has struck me over the last several sessions is that we Democrats bend over backwards to listen and to negotiate and to compromise. And I think that's good. You know, I would like to feel that we are listeners and we're trying to do things in a collaborative way. But I hope that when we go into these sessions that there's a game plan with a vision of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and that in your negotiations that you're trying to help educate across the aisle what it is that you're trying to achieve, and even more importantly, the why. Why is it that we want, for example, Medicare expansion to be available to anybody in need, and that we not want to put impediments like requirements in the way of them being able to access that insurance program. How can we do that? How can we get by their resistance to our desire to help people? That's a hard thing to think about, but I hope we're, as a party, beginning to do that, because we have to get past the Republican bullet points of why it is that they will never bend to allowing us to help the very people that need the help. Does that make any sense?
Well, it does. It does. I mean, that's at the gist of what's going on with Medicaid expansion. So we wouldn't have passed Medicaid expansion. The story behind Medicaid expansion is Mary Cafaro, a legislator out of Helena, who is incredibly knowledgeable about healthcare, put a really solid bill together. And took it to committee, Human Services Committee, and they didn't pass it. And then they started making noises of, well, we'll have our own bill. We'll have our own bill. And what ended up happening is they stole her bill, and she graciously helped them write this bill because they didn't know anything about Medicaid expansion. And we worked with probably 10 to 20 moderate Republicans in getting that passed. And that's how it happened. But it wouldn't have happened without the Democratic chutzpah of saying, okay, they're not going to go for our bill. They want to own this bill, and they want to carry this bill. And what can we do to make sure, even though our name's not going to be on, now Mary's name was eventually on it, but you know, it should have been a Democratic bill, and it's known as a Republican bill. So yeah, I think most people in leadership are immensely practical. We don't pick up our toys and go home. We go, okay, here's a stumbling block. How do we make this happen? And it's developing relationships with, you know, Democrats and Republicans, lobbyists, the governor's office. It's however you can make it happen, you do. You pull out all the stops. And that's what we did for Medicaid expansion. And I don't think there are a whole slew of people who know the role Mary Cafaro played, but she was incredibly knowledgeable and really helped move that bill through.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. I do know Mary very well. Yeah, she is good.
She's great.
So where do you go from this session? You're termed out?
I am termed out, yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I could run for Senate. I think JP is going to be termed out in the Senate. So the dirty little secret is there are no term limits. You know that, don't you?
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, let me tell you. So you can run for 8 years for the House, then you can run for 8 years in the Senate, and then you could come back and run for 8 years in the House. And in theory, run for 8 years in the Senate after that.
So you can just bounce back and forth between the two.
Right.
Yeah, see both sides.
Yeah. And there have been quite a few who have done that, right?
There's a handful, but it's becoming more of a popular approach.
Right, right. Absolutely. In thinking about, beyond even this session that's coming up, how do we continue to build our um, our list of people who are interested in running to be representatives in the future? How do we um, bring training and resources and mentorship to our county so that, when 2022 comes along, we've got people running for every seat that's vacant and, on the Democratic side, so that we're not leaving seats on the table. Like, we haven't had someone run in House District 69, at least for as long as I've been paying attention. And like that's yes, that's a tough House district, obviously, for a Democrat, but if we have a Democrat running in that seat, that helps all the up ballot rate, candidates. And how do we keep building our base and um, our our community so that we can keep growing our power and our presence here in Gallatin and across the state?
Well, if I was in charge of the universe, after the session's over, I think that's when you start. And you find out who's not going to run again, who's termed out, who's whatever. And then you look at those seats. And I think that it would be great if we could hire an organizer at that point. So you hire somebody who goes into the community and goes to the library and talks them up and says, are there people in this community who are concerned about issues and that might be willing to talk to me about running for office? Or you go to the gas station, or you go to the bar, or wherever. And that's what needs to happen. We need to, at that level, go into these communities that are not a slam dunk. My district's a slam dunk. So whoever runs in my district cannot be an idiot, but they'll they'll have a great opportunity. But in those tougher districts, you need to organize. You need to find out who the people are that we could interview, that we could support, that we could identify, and start building that earlier then. And I think that Gallatin Dems have done a phenomenal job. I can't fault you guys at all. And I think all we need to do is raise some more money and hire organizer or two and start early. And identify people who really will follow through. So if there's one pet peeve of mine, it is people who say they'll do it and they don't. And we can't afford people like that. We really need to vet them to make sure that they have the tools, that they have the support, whatever we can do for them. I think that's one idea I've had.
I love that idea. I think that's great. And I do think that, the more organized that the Gallatin Democrats can be for our community, the more we build that community. And I think, we've taken that step with an executive director position, but
Absolutely.
But I will say, being in this role now for about a month, there's so much more to do than one person can do. And,
Absolutely.
and it, which I knew that, and then doing it, you realize it even more. And then you think about all the work that really goes into having a sustainable community and organization. And it takes all of us, and it takes more of us. So I think that's just something that has been on my mind. Like, what comes next after
Yeah.
this election, after the session? How do we keep building? And that's what I've been thinking a lot about. Lately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, how to recognize in this time of COVID that, let's be realistic here. I mean,
Yeah.
we can only do so much. We're not out there knocking doors,
Yeah.
or very few of us. And so how can we honor what we're going through, do the best job we can, and support each other
Mm-hmm.
in this
Yeah.
crazy time?
Yes.
You're here.
Yep. Any other questions, Dwayne or Elizabeth?
I'm trying to.
I mean, I could go on for an hour, but no, I think I'll leave it there because I think that Denise has laid the groundwork and and informed us both of the past legislative sessions and into the future of what we're up against and what our challenges are. So thank you so much, and thank you for your continued leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Elizabeth, I could say the same to you. Thank you. And Allison, your new job. And Dwayne, you brought some great questions to this little gathering.
You realize that I'm the only male here. It's
We
It's
accept
woman
everyone,
leadership.
Dwayne.
We're, we got to have, diverse voices, right?
That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I really have any more questions other than of the sessions that you've done, and you're being a leader in the Democratic Party in the Montana legislature. What is the most fun thing that you look forward to every session, recognizing that maybe this year it's not possible, but like, what is it you usually look forward to?
I really enjoy the programs that we have. So we oftentimes have tribal folks show up and sing their native songs and do their dances. We have the blind school for the blind come and sing. I mean, those are, they'll be etched in my brain forever. I mean, those are the opportunities to see real Montana, because we're in Gallatin County and we're a little bit full of ourselves. But when you go out and see these people who live a very rural lifestyle, it stays with you. It really does. And they are lovely, lovely people.
That's beautiful. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Denise, so much for your time and your leadership in Gallatin County and in the state. I know that you have done so much, and I know you'll do a lot in this session, even if it won't quite look the same. But we're excited. I'm excited that you'll be reelected because we know you will be. Kind of hard not to be, but just thank you so much. And Dwayne and Elizabeth, thanks for joining us tonight as
Thank
well.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank all of you
Having
guys.
me.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. Well, we've got another one tomorrow night with Alice Buckley and Ed Staffman. So that'll be at 5:30 tomorrow, and then we've got more in the next couple weeks too. So just keep joining if you can, because I don't know, I'm actually really loving doing these, so they're great.
You're doing great.
Well, thanks. You never know, but anyway, thank you all so much, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.